If you place the mythological battlefield of the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata, next to 19th century Western philosophy, the two worlds appear entirely separate, yet they converge in a single figure. In the Mahabharata, Bhishma is the undisputed moral center of his universe, the most disciplined warrior of his age. But his biography presents a severe paradox. This paragon of virtue spends his life and spills his blood defending a tyrannical, corrupt throne. The epic centers on the Kuru dynasty's catastrophic civil war at Kurukshetra, where Bhishma commands the corrupt Kauravas against the righteous Pandavas. Standard literary and academic critiques view this allegiance as a tragic flaw. They frame Bhishma as a traditionalist trapped by inflexible vows that force him onto the wrong side of history. A 2020 paper by researcher Sabindra Raj Bhandari proposes a different framework, arguing that Bhishma is not a victim of dogma. When analyzed through a precise philosophical lens, Bhishma's rigidity reveals itself as a realization of Friedrich Nietzsche's Übermensch. By authoring his own uncompromising laws, Bhishma prefigures European existentialism by thousands of years. To test this argument, we have to look closely at Friedrich Nietzsche. In the late 1800s, Nietzsche set about diagnosing the decay of traditional civilization. He proclaimed the death of God, rejecting orthodox religious dogmas, which he termed slave morality. He believed these systems eliminated strength and bravery in favor of weak compliance. But the collapse of these traditional structures leaves behind an existential void. Without an inherited religious system, humanity loses its predetermined meaning. Nietzsche's solution to surviving and transcending this void is the Übermensch, or Superman. The Übermensch must generate his own moral axioms, refusing inherited ethical standards to become the creator of his own values. The secondary requirement is the assertion of a will to power, prioritizing internal drive and self-mastery over situational ethics. With these philosophical axioms established, we can cross-examine Bhishma's biographical timeline against them. If they align, we are looking at identical blueprints. Nietzsche dictates that the Übermensch is a trendsetter, engineered to disrupt the course of history. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche writes that man grows to the height where lightning strikes and break him, lofty enough for lightning. On our timeline as Mahabharata events, this maps onto the mythological origin of Devavrata, the boy who will become Bhishma. His cosmological backstory designates him as Prabhasa, a cursed demigod condemned by a sage's curse to live out an arduous life bound to the earth. He is born to the emperor of Hastinapur, Shantanu, and the celestial river goddess Ganga. Bound by the terms of the curse, Ganga drowns his 7 older brothers in the river immediately after their births. He is the 8th child, the sole survivor. This backstory ensures he enters the world with an elevated capacity. He is separate from the ordinary men around him from the moment of his birth. Bhishma's origin serves as a structural necessity for the Nietzschean argument. By surviving a divine culling that claimed 7 Leaveners, he is literally distilled into a singular disruptor, existing outside the normal human moral cycle before his life begins. Nietzsche mandates that to go high, one must use their own legs rather than being carried by others.
For Bhishma, the inciting incident occurs when his father, King Shantanu, falls in love with Satyavati, the daughter of a fisherman. The fisherman presents an ultimatum. Shantanu may only marry Satyavati if her future children are guaranteed the throne. This condition disinherits Bhishma, the lawful heir. Finding his father in deep despair over this impossible choice, Bhishma decisively takes matters into his own hands. He makes a dual oath. He renounces his lawful claim to the throne, and, to ensure Satyavati's line remains unchallenged, he swears a lifelong vow of absolute celibacy. The text lays out his terms. I give you a further vow, that I shall never marry nor lie with a woman. According to the epic, the heavens recognized the weight of this renunciation, renaming him Bhishma, the maker of the awesome vow. This vow is an active assertion of his own law. Bhishma has authored a moral standard higher than the throne itself, locking his destiny into place by his own hand. For the Übermensch, life is a will to power, the productive force that drives action against external circumstances and logic. Nietzsche requires that the Übermensch live dangerously, embracing purposeful strife over the comfort of safety. Bhishma's self-authored value system is tested during his conflict with Amba and his teacher, Parashurama. The stakes are immense. Parashurama is not simply a master of combat, he is an incarnation of the god Vishnu. When Parashurama demands he break his vow and marry Amba, Bhishma refuses. He engages in a cataclysmic duel with the deity, fighting to a standstill. Fast forward to the Kurukshetra War, and this drive forces Bhishma into a controversial position under the regime of Duryodhana. Because of his vows to the throne, Bhishma takes the field and commands the armies of the villains, slaughtering the forces of the righteous Pandavas. To the casual observer, this looks like a man bound by a technicality, but abandoning his code just because it aligns him with the wrong side would be a failure of the Nietzschean ideal. Bhishma's adherence to his pledge, even when it forces him to wage a war against cosmic justice, represents the application of his will to power. This creates a gridlock at the climax of the war. The righteous Pandavas cannot win because, on the battlefield, Bhishma is invincible. He holds a unique boon granted by his father, wishful death. Death cannot touch him until he gives it permission. To allow cosmic justice to prevail without breaking his own vows, Bhishma orchestrates his own downfall. He invites the opposing leaders into his tent and directs them on how to defeat him, instructing them to place the warrior Shikhandan in front of Arjuna's attack. On the 10th day, he is struck down. His body remains suspended above ground on an exoskeleton of arrows. Even then, he exercises control. He refuses immediate death, suffering on the arrowbed for 58 days, waiting for Uttarayana, the northern course of the sun. In Nietzschean terms, this is renunciation. Bhishma has risen above the worldly dualities of physical pain, victory, and defeat. He spends his final days lucid, passing down the intricacies of statesmanship and dharma, cosmic order, to the very men who defeated him. Bhishma concludes his life as the architect of his own end. By using his death to establish a new foundational truth for humanity, he lives according to his own self-authored laws, embodying the transcendent Übermensch millennia before Nietzsche gave it a name.